Welcome, ladies and gents, to another must-see podcast review of NXT. That's right, I'm your mother's favorite podcast of ours, and we've got an NXT review. And you know what? NXT is just the show that keeps on giving, and it's giving and giving, and it's just fan-freaking-tastic. I love everything about NXT at the moment. There's very few little bad storylines in NXT, which is fantastic. But let's not dwell on this. Let's move straight into the review. Of course, before we do so, please click subscribe and get yourself notified of any upcoming videos that we've got posting. We try and post every single day, so please, guys, make sure you tell your parents, grandparents, lovers, haters, whoever you like. We're right here on YouTube. The PWC, Pro Wrestling Central, is where you get your daily news, reviews, and of course, everything else that we post. And NXT, which had so much promise building up for today, we had so much to look forward to, kicked off with a rivalry that has just gone from first to fifth gear and has just stayed in there. It's been fantastic to watch so far. And that was Hit Row taking on, of course, Legado de Fantasma, which was fantastic to watch. I mean, it was a big hitting match. It really was. And we had basically a tag team match between the two of them. And listen, if anything, it wasn't a tag team match. That's for damn sure. It was just a full-on brawl. It was beautiful to watch. Some of the spots, in fact, were hectic. I know Adonis got thrown over the barricade at one stage, I think by Wild, I think it was. Could have been Wild. I mean, one of them threw them over the barricade, if I remember correctly. And then we also had the DQ finish, of course, that had to be protected. I think they're building up for TakeOver 36. And I think we're going to get Escobar versus, let's say, a Swerve at the finals. And you know what, an interesting thing about this match, or these groups rather, the factions, is both of them were formed to protect a certain individual. So Legado was formed to protect Escobar, which it's done. Hit Row was done to protect Swerve, and that it's done its job. And I think that is an important thing to realize coming into this, that yes, there's some tag team, there's a woman involved and all that sort of stuff, but I think that's just a byproduct of this rivalry between Swerve and Escobar. I think the factions, the fact that the leaders are challenging each other, I think the factions are coming through on that one as well. It was a chaotic match. I think it was BFAB even got involved there with the chair shot to Escobar on the back. Hit Row standing tall at the end of the match, and a way to start off NXT. Moving on to our next segment, we had Ridge Holland coming back into the ring, and he took on Ikemen Jiro. And you know what? Glorified squash match. That's not it. In fact, not even glorified. It was a proper squash match, and this was basically just to highlight how dangerous Ridge Holland is. And I get that. I get pro wrestling needs that sort of stuff, but I really don't want to see Ikemen being that guy. Jiro is so good, and I like his style that he fights with the jacket on and all that sort of thing. It's a great little gimmick, and I really hope that he doesn't fall into this line of being a full-on jobber. He deserves a lot bigger push. I thought he might get a bit further in the contest. I thought he'd beat Duke in the breakout, so he didn't. And I feel like that sort of solidified where he would be in NXT, at least for the time being. I know a lot of guys sometimes get past that, and some of them don't. You look, Adonis, for one, is one of them. He started off as pretty much a full-on 205 Live job, and look at him now on Hit Row. He's doing quite well. There's a few others that have come up and have started off at the bottom, being the jobber, being the squash match guy, and coming through, which is always great to watch. Not much else I can say about the match. Ridge obviously picked up the victory, but the promo work afterwards from Pete Dunne, the Bruiserweight has shown the audience that Dunn is becoming a bit of a genius when it comes to being on a microphone. And it's going to sound really mean towards the American audience, but I don't think the American audience understood Pete Dunne at the start. I think when he debuted in NXT, I think a lot of them were confused who this typical British wrestler is. They were exposed to guys like William Regal and Sheamus, who sort of adapted their Britishness to face this sort of American style of wrestling, where Pete Dunne has not done that. I mean, you look at British wrestling in general, it's very more technical than what WWE or what American wrestling is. And I'm glad Pete Dunne stuck to his loins. He didn't, try and become Americanized like your Wade Barrett's, Sheamus's, Becky Lynch's, William Regal. These guys had to adapt, obviously, to become better wrestlers for them. So the bigger audience, because the American audience didn't really understand British wrestling. British Bulldog tried to do that. It didn't really work out as great as he had hoped. But with that sort of stuff to the side, Pete Dunne on the microphone has improved a hell of a lot, and I'm really enjoying this little faction with Oney Locke, Pete Dunne and Ridge Holland. And of course, don't forget, Danny Burch is still on the sidelines. I'm pretty sure he will re-enter the fray once he is medically cleared. My big thing is who does Tommaso Ciampa and Toothless Timmy find to help them even the odds, or do they even need someone to even the odds? I think that is the talking point that we need to find out. Is there someone who is of that caliber in NXT, or will we be seeing a debut of sorts? The action came fast and furious with NXT, and we had our next match. It was the grudge match that we've been hyped up about from last week, and that was Bobby Fish taking on Roderick Strong. Of course, Roderick Strong had the members of the Diamond Mine there to help him, including my personal favorite and probably the greatest manager currently in wrestling, Malcolm Evans. Love that man. I think he's got that face that you just want to, but it's so good. I love him. I love how cheesy he is. I think that's the perfect word to use, how cheesy Malcolm Bivens is. Anyway, let's not get distracted by the true gold character in this situation. Roderick Strong and Bobby Fish obviously know each other a lot from the Undisputed Era. They've wrestled a couple of times in the independents together. And, this was, I'll be honest with you, I'm not 100% behind Bobby Fish's solo run. I feel like it needs a little bit more. I feel like he's struggling to connect with the audience like his fellow Undisputed members have. I mean, Kyle O'Reilly is so over at the moment. Adam Cole is Adam Cole, let's be honest. And even Roderick Strong is starting to get a little bit more oomph in his style coming out of it. I feel like Bobby Fish, unfortunately, has been the quieter of the four. However, with that being said, this match was just a technical masterpiece between the two of them. And it really showcased what Bobby Fish can actually do given the appropriate time and opponent. I think he made an effect. But it's also to say that Roderick Strong really shone here as a veteran of the ring too. And I'm not saying that Bobby Fish is not a veteran, but Roderick Strong's always had this ability to bring out the best in his opponents. And I think that is a very key thing in wrestling specifically. If you can do what you do and make the other guy look as good as you or even better, I think that is the ultimate trait when it comes to being a pro wrestler. And I honestly feel like Roderick Strong has this. In the end, picked up the victory over Bobby Fish, the messiah of backbreakers. He is who he is. Picked up the victory there. You've got to protect him a little bit this one. And then issued the challenge to Kushida for next week. We'll have a Cruiserweight Championship match. Roderick Strong taking on Kushida. It was confirmed that this match will happen next week on NXT. Just before their tag team match, the next match that came up was the tag team match. We had a little bit of a backstage segment with Cameron Grimes and LA a night where Grimes was concerned that Knight wouldn't have his back in this tag team match. Knight assured him that he'll definitely have it, but he has to wrestle the match in his butler attire, which is cool. We then had the match against Cameron Grimes and LA Knight taking on the Grizzly Young Veterans. I feel like you have to say it because they are Scousers, and you know, Scousers are weird people and they'll get upset if I don't say it like that. But anyway, it was a good match, solid match. We had Cameron Grimes. I think it showcased Cameron Grimes' ability to be such a fantastic wrestler. I mean, this man was, for lack of better words, to the moon good in this match. And yeah, it was a brutal beating from the Grizzly Young Veterans. And when it came to the pinnacle point of Cameron Grimes trying to make the tag for LA Knight ditched him from the apron, and this sort of sparked a different side of Cameron Grimes, a side that we haven't seen in a long time. It was a adrenaline rush fuel. He fought back as hard as he could. Unfortunately, of course, the Grizzly Young Veterans, the numbers games was too much. But the big talking point about this is Ted DiBiase coming out and telling Cameron Grimes to find a way to get out of this and to fulfill his true potential as a solid challenger. So what happens next? We've got to get another match, Cameron Grimes, LA Knight down the line, whether it drags out for a couple more weeks or whether it happens at TakeOver 36. It's all about to play out, I guess, in the next 2-3 weeks that we have till that TakeOver. I just want a quick mention here to the Grizzly Young Veterans. As much as I'm not a big Liverpool fan, and I know they are huge Liverpool fans, I do have to say this, that the Grizzly Young Veterans are probably one of my favorite tag teams in NXT. I feel like they just have everything that it needs to be in a tag team. And again, like you guys know, I've mentioned this several times, I'm not a big tag team fan, but I really enjoy the Grizzly Young Veterans, and I think they deserve more title opportunities. I think they deserve a title run. Whether MSK will acknowledge this or they still have Imperium to sort out, maybe Grizzly Young Veterans get a second opportunity to be at the top of the card. Only time will tell, but I feel like they deserve a decent push. Then we had a pre-recorded message from Dakota Kai on her turn of Raquel Gonzalez. And you know what? It was pretty much to the point, explaining exactly why she turned on Raquel, claiming that she's the reason Raquel is the champion. She's the one who mentored Raquel and built up Raquel to be this massive, huge superstar. And you know what? She is as right as they come. Yes, we're not supposed to cheer for her. She is a bad person for turning on her friend and kneeing her friend in the face. But you can't help it. This is probably the best I've seen Dakota Kai in a long time. I think even before, you know what, I think this is the best I've seen Dakota Kai since coming to NXT. The last time that I sort of watched her, she was never on my top 10 radar list to watch, was at the Mae Young Classics. When I looked at it, I said, Dakota Kai is one for the future. Yes, she was the more happy-go-lucky face of, character, but I'm loving this more cynical, more straight to the point. Whether she beats Raquel, I don't see it happening. I think Raquel is making the transition from heel champion to face champion. And the main reason behind it, I feel like NXT is building up a lot more heel characters than they are face characters, especially in the women's division right now. And it's proving to the point that it's building to the point we're going to get a Frankie Monet versus Raquel Gonzalez title match, I think. I think that's where they're heading with this one. Yes, that's a very long-term booking is what I'm thinking. But if I look at the women's roster right now, there isn't many individual superstars, faces for that could have challenged Raquel. So it makes sense to try and change her into a heel. And then you have people, into a face rather, then you have guys like Candice LeRae who could possibly step up to the championship title. There's a whole bunch. But with that being said, it could have also gone flipped the other way, and then you have people like Ember Moon and Sarai who can be built up to become potential good face champion competitors rather against Raquel. So I feel like there's more good heels in NXT at the moment than there are faces across the board, males and females, and I think that is one of the big reasons why I think they're trying to turn Raquel face. As for Dakota Kai, she needs to stay as heel as long as possible. And you know what? I'm happy that she's given the spotlight a little bit, and maybe she pulls the upset off at Takeover 36. We're moving on, and just a warning: there's a rant coming. Just preparing you guys. We had the final quarterfinal match in the Breakout Tournament of 2021. And it took Tyler Baxter taking on Joe Gacy. And you know what? It's something that I've noticed in the breakout tournaments. We've had some standout performances, but they've really shortened the time allowed for these guys to shine. And this one was probably the most criminal out of all of them. Joey Gacy on former CZW champion. The man has done amazing stuff on the indies. And he was made to look like a stepping stone for Baxter because Baxter has had previous matches on NXT. It's I don't know, like, I feel like if you're going to showcase breakout stars, give them their 15 minutes, give them their 20 minutes, let them have a proper, full-on, like, pay-per-view quality kind of match, rather than let them have a 5-minute quick bring around. And from start to finish, you could tell that Taylor Baxter was going to be the winner of this match. In fact, looking at the vignettes growing up to this, I didn't feel like Gacy even had a single opportunity to get through. And it kind of hurts me a little bit because I see where this is going. I see Baxter and Carmelo Hayes final at the moment. The way they've portrayed these two, I mean, Duke Hudson and Odyssey Jones, the other two semi-finalists, have had little to almost no screen time compared to the other two. So it's clear who NXT is trying to push, and it kills me because Odyssey Jones, man, is my boy. Love that man. He's so good. Like, he's so good. But that's my rant, you know. It feels like I think they're correcting a lot of wrongs they did from the previous breakout tournament, and I think they're getting the potential winner to be a better candidate than what they had last year. Nothing against Jordan Miles or ACL, whatever he's going by now, as he's retired now. But I don't feel like he was the right winner for the breakout tournament. A lot of people wanted to say Swerve to win that breakout tournament, or even Bronson Reed, and they chose Jordan Miles instead in the end, which was, he had the potential to be a big star, but unfortunately just didn't have the right, I don't want to sound mean, but the right attitude for the wrestling industry. And it showed across the board. Wherever he went, it had the same sort of, you know, sometimes to be outspoken is not the best way, especially when it comes to quite frivolous things like a t-shirt, you know. But I'm not going to get into that, and please don't lambaste me on that. And it's a different story for a different topic. We can talk about that another day. I'm not saying what they did was right. I'm not saying what they did was wrong. I'm just putting my voice out there. But going forward, you know, like Carmelo Hayes, I think, would be a big superstar. But the problem you've got to see this is, you can't think just NXT. You got to think beyond NXT. And the question is, you know, with WWE's landscape at the moment, is someone like Carmelo Hayes or Tyler Baxter going to be the man that they want on the main roster? Or is someone like Duke Hudson and Odyssey Jones, who are a lot bigger, are they the type of characters that they want? I mean, Duke Hudson has got everything that it is that Wade Barrett had and more. And I mean, they've made this comparison several times. On the main roster, he'd probably be a decent mid-carder to higher carder given the right, you know, marketing, where Odyssey Jones has pretty much a carbon copy. In fact, Odyssey Jones, I think the best way to describe him is if you take Mark Henry and you make a child with Keith Lee, that is Odyssey Jones. And he's got the size and the capabilities of Mark Henry in selling in the ring. And then you've got the athletic ability that Keith Lee has. And I think that kind of proves how good Odyssey Jones is. And he would do extremely well on the roster, albeit said, we're looking at Keith Lee at the moment. I don't know. I don't know where this goes. But anyway, Tyler Baxter picked up the victory over Gacy in, I think the official recorded time was 5 minutes 21 seconds, which we got to see about 4 minutes. I think there was about a minute, an advert in between somewhere. We then had one of the most anticipated main events, I guess you can call them, of NXT, the most anticipated close to a show. We had Samoa Joe and Karrion Kross in the ring, filled with security guards everywhere. William Regal told Samoa Joe to not lay a finger on Karrion Kross. Obviously, Joe was not going to have that. And before I get to that, I just want to mention also they're hyping up Ilja Dragunov, who's coming to NXT next week to address his title match against Walter in the UK Championship title match there, happening at TakeOver 36. And you know what? As a guy that binge watches NXT UK, I'm actually a little bit excited for this match. Dragunov was the man who was supposed to beat Walter a couple of months ago, but because of injury couldn't, and now he's finally back, and we're going to get this match. It was one of the most hyped matches in NXT UK history, and of course the longest reigning UK champion of all time, probably the longest. He's currently, I think he's the longest reigning modern champion in WWE history at the moment. I think he's almost up to 900 days as champion. I'll have to double check. I'm sure he's up to there somewhere. And his title for the first time is actually looking like it could be in jeopardy. And I think a big talking point is not the fact that Walter might be losing the title. I really do think he's going to drop the title to Dragunov, because I think Dragunov is going back to UK. I think Walter is going to stay in the US and help Imperium, his group, his faction that he has, to take over the tag team division. And I won't be surprised if we get Walter in the main event of UK NXT, US version, with the NXT title hanging around there. I personally wouldn't mind watching Walter Karrion Kross. I wouldn't mind Walter Samoa Joe. Hell, I wouldn't even mind Walter and Adam Cole. There's so many opportunities for the hard-hitting man. We saw what he did against Tommaso Ciampa, which was a fantastic match, albeit a little bit more spot-festy than we wanted. It was still a hard-hitting affair, and I think Walter brings that extraness to NXT. But switching gears now to NXT and the title match that is announced for TakeOver 36. Joe and Kross didn't say much. They didn't need to say much. Joe tried to attack Karrion Kross. He escaped. Unfortunately, a poor bald security guard who resembles a little bit like Karrion Kross got the coquina clutch and was taken out. And both these guys have got very similar finishing moves, so it's very interesting to see. The coquina clutch and the cross jacket, very similar styles, slight variations obviously, but in the end they are both steeper holds, and I'm excited for this one. I'm hyped for this match. See Samoa Joe get back in the ring. It's more angry Samoa Joe that we haven't seen in in fact, the last time we saw this angry Samoa Joe was probably when he was challenging Brock Lesnar for the title and he choked out Paul Heyman. I think that is the last time we got to see a proper Samoa Joe. But of course, you can't end a show without the true meaning of love, hey? We had our main event. We had the Love Her or Leave Her match. Johnny Gargano taking on Dexter Lumis. If Johnny Gargano wins, Indy Hartwell is not allowed to pursue Dexter Lumis anymore, and Dexter must leave them alone. If Dexter wins, he can join the family. And you know what? I've been Team Index since day one. You guys know I'm happy for them. I really, really cheered for them. And I was excited for this match because it's a match that had been brewing for a very long time. And you know what? It didn't disappoint at all. Dexter Lumis and Joey Gargano brought the house down. And this is a proof that comedic wrestling has a huge place in wrestling in general, because you can be a comedic wrestler and you can still be a fantastic in-ring technician, and Joey Gargano is the proof of that. And to an extent, so is Dexter Lumis. I mean, he literally looked like the star in this match. And I love the one point we had Indy come out and Candice LeRae try to distract Indy from, being there, caused a little bit of distraction with Joey Gargano and the confusion. Looked like he was going to lose a little bit, but of course Johnny Wrestling fought his way back, picked up the victory, and you know what? I had a tear coming. It was there, right there, came down, because that was the end of Index. Gargano picked up the victory, walked up the ramp, grabbed Indy Hartwell, and was like, it's done, it's over. But of course, Indy, being the rebellion teenager that she is in this family that is the way, defied her fathers, I guess, and ran down to the ring and jumped on top of Dexter, giving him a big old smooch, to the delight of course, Beth Phoenix as well. And we had Index finally together, much to the dismay of Johnny Gargano and Candice LeRae, leaving them in the ring to do their thing. And we got our happy ending at the end. The big question is, what happens to the way after this, with Austin Theory gone missing, and of course now we have Dexter Lumis joining the family? Or does Indy then, leave the family? There is rumors that they want to bring Indy up to the main roster. Does that mean Dexter joins him on the main roster, or do they just forget about what happened on NXT like they've been doing with Karrion Kross on the main roster? Interesting to see. I really hope, and I know this is a big hope, that WWE main roster sees the greatness that is the way, and if they're going to bring Indy Hartwell up and Austin Theory, that they keep Johnny Gargano and Candice LeRae with them. Even add Dexter Lumis in. I think they need to come as a unit, as a proper faction into Raw or SmackDown. Preferably, I prefer SmackDown, as they book their talent a lot better. But that's dreaming. I just hope they don't break these guys up. And if they do, it's done correctly, in the sense that they don't just ignore past storylines from NXT. Like they did in the past, when we had the, Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn coming up, or Sami Zayn Nakamura. They've mentioned their history, whereas with Karrion Kross, they haven't even mentioned once of any of these issues with Keith Lee that they had in NXT before. And even with Keith Lee, they haven't mentioned that he's the only man to have held the North American title and the NXT title at the same time. And I feel like it's undermining everything that NXT does. And that brings us to the end of a fantastic NXT event, and it was great to watch. I thoroughly enjoyed it. My only downfall was the breakout match. It was just too short for me, but still a good match nonetheless. On the Verse scale, we have to do it. Of course, it's tradition, yeah. It picks up a healthy 8.5 on the Verse scale, making one of the best NXTs. There wasn't even a low point in NXT today. I can't even think of something that I was watching going, no, even like I said, the breakout was just a bit short, and I was a bit disappointed. But everything, all the hype to TakeOver 36, even the squash match with Ridge Holland and Ikemen, I understand why it was done, so it didn't disappoint me that much. I just felt bad for poor Jiro. He shouldn't have been the victim of that brutality. What a great show, though. What a great way to start the week on NXT. You had a good Raw, you had a good NXT. SmackDown can bring it home. I'm pretty sure tomorrow, Homecoming AEW is going to be a great show as always. I'm excited for the Chris Jericho match, so let's see how that one goes. But of course, right here on PWC, if you haven't done so already, please click subscribe and notify yourselves. From me, your mother's favorite. I'll see you guys again soon. Peace and chicken grease.